Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Living Experiment podcast, the pandemic live edition. We've been doing this fun series of live guest episodes for the past, well, off and on, the past year plus. And we've had a lot of fun doing it. Sometimes the benefit of just having guests on, we get a chance to actually go deep into material we probably wouldn't have a chance to go deep into otherwise. And today I'm really excited to have two very special guests, Leslie Salmon Jones and Jeff W. Jones of Afroflow Yoga. This is a form of conscious movement and well, it's more than that. It's meditation, it's personal expression, it's collective healing, it's a deep philosophical grounding in something good. And it's a body mind movement form that I did not know existed, but I'm so glad to have discovered. I was really lucky to have the opportunity to meet with Leslie and Jeff in person when they came to perform at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition's IIN Live event that I hosted and helped to moderate back in 2019. And it was an incredible event at Lincoln Center. Leslie and Jeff just brought down the house. I'll share a little snippet of that video from that performance a little later in our episode. But I wanted to, before I welcome Leslie and Jeff to our broadcast, thank you so much for just being with us this past year during our quirky schedule and replanning of that schedule. And during our experimentation phase, those of you who want to check out some of the earlier live episodes, including some that Dallas and I did together, like the the new normal episode, which has been popular, might have fun going back and checking out those. And rest assured, we have more real live in-person episodes coming too. As I mentioned in our last episode, Dallas and I are getting together in San Diego just a few days from now to record some more in-person episodes of the Living Experiment podcast together, which will be delightful. But for today, the people that I get live and in person are Leslie and Jeff. So I'm going to add them and welcome them to the Living Experiment podcast. Hey, Leslie. And I see Jeff in the background sneaking in. Hi.
Hello, Laura. We are so thrilled to be with you today.
Oh, I'm so delighted to have you both. Thank you for taking time out of what I know is a super busy schedule. You guys have been performing and teaching and doing retreats and on TV shows. And I can't wait to talk to you about the kind of, it seems like to me at least, everybody is discovering you and it probably is long overdue, but I'm really happy to see you guys getting your work out there even more than it was. So let's start by just introducing you properly. We've got Leslie Salmon Jones and Jeff W. Jones, who are a partnership creatively, personally, in business and in life. And the two of you together are kind of a match made in heaven. And today I want to know I want to hear a little bit about your personal stories and what brought you together to create Afroflow Yoga and co-found it. And I also want to talk about what it is and why its time has come as a form of movement and of healing. I have my own thoughts on that, but I want to hear yours. And then I want to hear about too, where you guys feel like this is going and if it's different now than it was in 2019. But let's start with you. So what I know of you is that, Leslie, you've been a dancer for a very long time. You were a dancer with Alvin Ailey and kind of came to discover yoga through your dance and then became a kind of inveterate fan of it and have been practicing yoga and meditation ever since. And Jeff, I know you've been a professional musician, multi-instrumentalist, vocalist with some amazing greats, including, you mentioned one that blew me away was Quincy Jones. And you have a long resume of playing in sessions and creating collective music experiences, but a lot of what you do in Afroflow Yoga is perform live music that creates an incredible sonic space for the practice and the performance that Leslie and other dancers and movers do. And you dance yourself and do yoga, right?
Yes. I started Kundalini back in 1991.
Amazing. Well, every time I see the two of you, I feel like I just want to shut up and let you talk and tell us in your own worlds about what you do and why. I'll share just a tiny bit of perspective, though. On the Living Experiment podcast, one of the things we encourage people to do is experiment and see what happens when they do things different. differently from the way they usually do them. For me, my first exposure to one of your classes, I was a little terrified because it involved moving in rhythms and in ways that I didn't feel very comfortable with in my body. I'm not much of a dancer, and I don't usually do things that involve me maybe looking silly in public or moving in ways that are unfamiliar to me. By the end of the first online course experience I had with you guys, I felt like $1,000,000. And I felt loved and included, and my body felt fluid and warm and flushed and happy. And I want to know how you guys created an art form and a movement form that seems to be so transformative to so many, where that started for you. And maybe we can start with the personal and then move to the evolution of the work. But Leslie, would you like to start?
Sure. And first of all, thank you, Pilar, for inviting us to your living experiment. We love you, and we really were thrilled to work with you at IIN in 2019, right before the pandemic. And wow, things have definitely changed since then. So we're grateful to be here. So to begin, I just want to be clear, I trained at Alvin Ailey. So I received my training there. I didn't dance with the company. I trained there, and I was introduced to yoga in 1991, similar to what Jeff was saying when he was introduced to Kundalini yoga. And really, I was born in Toronto, and my ancestry is Jamaican descent. 3 of my grandparents were Jamaican, and the only grandparent I knew was my Scottish, Irish, Canadian grandmother, Violet Bell. And we have we could trace our lineage on that side back to Dundee, Scotland. And we have a book about this thick with all the names and all the lineage. And then in Jamaica, a lot of the records were lost. So it's been such a piecing together. So coming to my dance practice was really connecting to that part of me, that lineage of the African diaspora. If people don't know about Alvin Ailey, definitely look Alvin Ailey up. He was an amazing choreographer, African American, who brought the spiritual practices of the diaspora, African diaspora, into dance, and it was like watching grace and motion. And so that's really how I healed myself, because I had an identity crisis when I was growing up, really torn and not seeing the reflection of my Blackness reflected in the media, in education, in history. So that's how I came to the practice at Alvin Ailey, and then of yoga. And yoga and dance have never been separate for me, actually, because I came to them together. Yeah.
That's so cool. I it's interesting just to hear you say that. I somehow have always found that when people move into their professional sphere through some deep sense of personal longing, it seems to illuminate whatever practice or performance or art form or gift that they have to give. It feels like it's like the personal tapping into the universal, because I think we're all looking for some level of healing, cultural and interpersonal and otherwise. So that's very cool. And Jeff, what about you?
Well, my story goes back, starting with my ancestors. I can start with an enslaved African who was brought into Wilmington, North Carolina at 10 years old in 1820. And that was my great-grandmother. And from there, we have family reunions, lots of music, of course. And so my musical lineage starts with my parents. My grandmother was my first teacher. She was my piano teacher. She was a main influence, a mentor to Roland Hayes and Marian Anderson and a lot of classical legends back then. My dad was a bass player. In fact, his bass is back there. His upright bass that he played with Billie Holiday, Sammy Davis Jr., Tom Jones. My mom was a coloratura soprano. She was in classical music. So my grandmother was also a classical musician. So that, along with probably church and playing in church and playing all over the world, different venues. Quincy Jones was a major influence. I haven't had a chance to work with him, but he's a major influence and another Jones in my life.
Sorry, I got that wrong. I misremembered that, I think, from the IIN Live event. In any case, I apologize for getting it wrong.
Oh, no, but he's one of my major influences in life. So I'm glad you mentioned him. And of course, Tom Jones. There are a lot of Joneses, and my dad played with Tom Jones, so a lot of Joneses to hear in the mix here. So Leslie and I started with doing yoga and dance. We did DVD way back when we first met, probably within the first year, right, of us meeting. Mm-mm. No.
Well,
not the DVD.
Not the DVD.
We did choreography and dance.
And music.
We did things like hair shows at the Ritz-Carlton for Intercoiffure, which is a major hair organization, and that's kind of was one of our first gigs together.
Productions were
dance and music. So, and then we did a fitness DVD years later. So we've always been on this track of doing dance and music. And my influences are the percussion you see back here, mainly a bass player. And this is the vibration of the drums really was something I brought a djembe back from West Africa that I have back there. And that really gave us a connection to our Afroflow yoga and the lineage and the history and the vibrations. So
it's an amazing thing, the classical background that you have, the classical training that you both have, feels like it's come through all of these layers, like your virtuosic kind of performance abilities. But when you get together, there's something extraordinary that happens I've never seen before in I don't know, any kind of course environment. The live music that you play and that infuses the rhythms of the movement, that Leslie is bringing forth all of this like beautiful movement, but with all this intention and like love and blissful expression. I want to just show a little tiny clip from the stage at Lincoln Center to give you people just a tiny little sense of what this experience is like. And then I've got a couple other samples I want to share as we go through our time together of a class that you teach with a bunch of folks kind of in a circle experience. And then a little sample of what it looks like when people are taking classes, your Zoom classes, which you've been doing live for a while now. But I know during the pandemic, it seemed like people were so hungry to be able to take your courses and to be in a communal experience. I want to show a little bit of that too. But let's start with the big stage. I'll figure out how to share my screen here for just a second and give people a little taste of this. Okay. Oh, I hope I can do this. Easier said than done. I think I just maybe got the wrong thing. Are you guys able to? Technology. Sorry, I think I've got myself.
Right, take your time.
Take your time.
Are you guys still seeing me here?
Yeah,
yes,
and you're quite gorgeous.
Aren't you kind? Oh, thank you so much. Okay, so let me see if I can. Well, I don't think I'm sharing a screen at all. This is really weird.
You shared it before, but we saw your email. So
yeah, that's no help. I don't want to. Here,
so
okay.
You just have to open that app. Yeah.
I'll just do it this way. I'm going to have to share a Chrome tab, and it'll be this one. Here we go. All right.
And now in Afroflow yoga, the heart center is really important. Open your heart. Good. Inhale and X. In and X. Beautiful. Now, I see you up there. Good. In and X. Now think of taking in love and exhale. Take that love in. Good. Now bring yourself, shower yourself with a little self-love, a little compassion. You got it? Yeah? You deserve it. All right. Now what we're going to do is begin to spread the love. So, from your heart to my heart to all of your hearts, maybe turn around and spread some love. Spread some love to someone. Yeah. Beautiful. And it's free. Isn't that amazing? All right. Now reach to the earth. Earth. Take it to the earth. All right. Take it to the sky. Reach again. Reach. Beautiful. Now in Afroflow yoga, one of our signature moves here is to restore the nervous system. You need to let something go. Are you ready to let something go? All right, so like a tree, stay rooted. Take a deep breath. Grow your branches and your leaves. Are you ready for it? It's the fall. What do trees do in the fall? They shake it off. So we're gonna shake, shake, shake. You can shake anything. Go, go, you got it. Breathe. Nice. You have 10 seconds. 9, shake. 8, 7, nice to you. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, inhale. And then exhale.
I love that. Oh my gosh. I was like, yeah, do we have some things to let go? Oh, we do.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so beautiful. You know, it's funny. One of the things I'd forgotten was how the woman doing the signing got into it too.
I loved her. I love that. I love that there was a whole community of deaf participants there, and I got a chance to speak to them after, and they said they loved it because of the expression and some of the gestures they understood, because some of them are, I speak a lot with my hands.
I love that you do. They're very expressive hands. Yeah, that's amazing. So, and that experience was amazing. There was 1,000 people. There were 1,000 people in that in auditorium in Lincoln Center, and I think every single person that could stand was standing and moving along with you. And just after 5 minutes, everyone was feeling like it was a whole different world. So. And I've seen you do that now in a couple different environments where people who were older got on stage with you. And one of the things that you guys really make a hallmark of the Afroflow yoga experience, from what I can tell, is inclusiveness and acceptance and self-compassion and non-judgmental mindsets. And this is in every part of the experience, from when you introduce what the class is about to the movement part to the meditation and so on. Has it always been that way? Did you guys begin with, overtly talking about those as values of the practice?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think diversity our class has always been diversity, although, people were kind of leery at first, people of other colors can they come, and people would joke and say, do I need to have an afro or something? It's like, so we were like, no, you don't, but we had a wonderful, diverse group of folks, and that's been since the beginning. So that makes it very special to bring people together, especially in these times of the racial divide.
Yeah. Did you guys notice a difference, after the murder of George Floyd? I mean, obviously, this is not the first time we've seen something like that happen, but it certainly seemed to begin a kind of cultural conversation, or reignite a cultural conversation about racial division and the need for us to not be so divided and separated, and to have a better understanding, and acceptance of ourselves and each other as human beings. Have you found that conversation becoming more present in your, or just that consciousness more present in your classes? Have you seen more people coming to your classes that you think are seeking that kind of integration, acceptance, inclusiveness?
Absolutely. So we both grew up by nature of, being of African descent. We both grew up with the awareness since we were little. We were always told, you have to be better, you have to be careful out there. There's just the feeling of being excluded was something that was at our consciousness, our daily consciousness. So that's why it was really important for us to make Afroflow yoga inclusive, because we know how that feels to be excluded and how healing it is to be included and to be non-judged. So when we started Afroflow yoga, even before that, we were in the conversation around anti-racism. My mother is still a civil rights activist, and my dad and Jeff's parents also been very involved in his family in social consciousness. And so we actually were doing racial healing workshops well before this happened back in 2014, 2015. People were looking at us like we had 10 heads. But so the conversation, we had already been in conversation, and there were people who wanted to be in conversation with us at that time. But since the murder of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and so many others, since it's been a building moment in time, the shift definitely happened. We were all home. We got to really feel. And so then people were coming to the class really wanting to know more. So what we did was, as we were having our virtual classes, we also held space for conversations. And we were holding space for conversations around anti-racism and really what people needed at the time. And so what we found is that the conversations varied, obviously, with different levels of consciousness, particularly the people who have been marginalized. Were not really wanting to be in a conversation about what anti-racism. The need was for deep healing, because really there was like a huge Band-Aid that was pulled out, revealing the deep generational trauma, 400 years of pain. So really needed to be in a more healing space and protected. And then there's some people who have done a lot of the healing and we're okay with having other people in conversation. And there are other people who are just new to the consciousness, like, oh my gosh, there's been racism, that's terrible. And so never knew, never realized. And so what we did was we created resource pages and resources out of those conversations. The first leg was history of racism, because it's important to understand the history first and foremost. The second resource was on anti-racism resources, like what can you actually do? What are some books to read? What are some groups to join? Some discussions to join? And then the third was healing our roots for people who really just needed the healing. Exhaustion they were at the brink of exhaustion.
Yeah.
And so we understand we're all on different levels in this process, and it's a big process.
Well, talk about a living experiment. I really applaud you for the courageousness of pivoting in that moment where the conversation was called for. And I think anti-racism is a topic, for me, as a person in my mid-50s, the first exposure I had to that was in college, which was, way too late. But I went to college on the West Coast, in the Bay Area, where they taught things like ethnic heritage in America in 1985. But honestly, I almost didn't hear about it at all in public life. I certainly didn't hear about it in a yoga class. I didn't hear about it in a music experience. You had to really go in search of those conversations and be willing to, let down your guard enough to have them. I think creating space for them in an environment with as much love and good juju as you guys seem to admit sounds like a really spectacular gift, and a really worthwhile experiment. I'm glad to hear that you were able to find so many different ways of supporting people at different levels and different points of evolution. That's courageous in itself. And I know that must have taken immense energy to do on top of the work you're already doing, creating these courses and everything. So how are you guys dividing your time and creative effort now between the classes that you teach online, and are those in the same frequency as they were before, or have you expanded that practice? I should ask you that. I'll stop with that question and ask you 5 more after that.
Well, our classes now are recorded, and we have a whole membership system. So we have people are able to, versus before we were basically always live, and we had some marketing recordings, but COVID has really changed how we have distributed everything. We have so many. Our first class we had like 8,000 views on. We had Instagram, Zoom, and Facebook all going at the same time when we started this. So it's really given us another flow of energy. The way the way we conduct the class is a bit different, because before we were in a circle with people. So things have really.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was going to show a little sample of one of those bigger classes, the kind of circle style classes that you guys were kind enough to share with me. And but thank you too for mentioning that, Jeff, just that the dynamic, I think, as creatives, people, almost everybody I know had to pivot their delivery of their materials during the pandemic, and going from having live in-person classes, like my sister, had to try to figure out how to deliver all of that online and make it packageable into some kind of series. So you guys have a membership that's available now that people can sign up for, so that they can get a regular supply of these classes on demand and experience them whenever they want to.
Yeah, and they're also live. So we do live and we record them so they can experience them whenever they want to. And then, but they don't. People don't have to be members as well. So they can they can show up, and then they don't have to, join the membership. But it's just a little more affordable if they're doing it consistently that way.
Yeah, so you can get a taste test and go check out. They have sample classes available. The YouTube channel is a wonderful resource too, but you can link to that directly from your page at afroflowyoga.com. Let me show, if I can manage to pull this off one more time, a little example of, here we go. I got out of this, and I can think, oh, haha, look, there's a special thing I'm learning about this new mechanism too. This is a little circle-y type class, the kind that you teach when you guys go to retreat centers, and also I think the standard classes that you used to teach in person were more along these lines. And I don't want that bio. This is not as easy as I thought. Stand with me 1 second. Oh, I don't need your bio. I need this. Here, this one. So this is with, is it Ioka? I cannot say the name. Ioka. She's the instrumentalist and vocalist who's doing the music for this course. This class where was this filmed, Leslie?
At the dance complex, and Jeff is in there. She was a guest singer artist.
I got it.
Sometimes we work with guest artists.
So we get the both of you. We've got Jeff W. Jones and Ioka here, right?
Exactly. And that's at the dance complex in Cambridge.
And there was another drummer that was with us, Achille Haynes. Yes.
Excellent. Are you guys able to see this okay? Is it showing up on our screen?
No, we just see the bio.
That's not that helpful.
I can check it. I can check it for spelling errors.
Oh, thank you. Well, the bios are quite interesting. Like I said, if I had read them a little bit more carefully, I probably would have gotten more of that right. I will also, as I was saying, though, it's funny. Even before I knew anything about the work that you guys do, I think I saw some video that someone else had posted of this class, and I think it was just a few minutes. And I was kind of blown away, and I just was like, I don't even know what this is, but I really want to watch more of this. So I want to emphasize, I'm just giving folks the tiniest little taste test of what you guys do, but you can find more and look at all of these sample classes, these larger exhibition style performances at afroflowyoga.com. And let me see if I can pull this off. I don't know why this is kind of tricky for me today. I know you guys are having a little tech issue on your end. I had no idea I'd run into one on mine.
Hey, we believe in you, Pilar.
Thanks. Yeah, I've had to expand my self-acceptance a lot in the past few months of trying to do this. Let's see. I'm just going to go here and do it this way. Window, StreamYard. No, that's not what I want. Darn it. Well, oh, here we go. I keep figuring out these new ways of doing things. Let's try this. This is a, there we go. How about that?
Hey, fantastic.
Okay, great. And I'll skip through parts of this. Beautiful warm-ups. The radiant Leslie. I'm going to skip to this part just to show the glorious energy that happens in these circle experiences. All the different rhythms from flowing to ecstatic.
I think the music is a little more dynamic, even in the other video. I think there's something with audio that's kind of suppressing the audio part, the music part.
Yeah.
But people get the idea.
You get the idea.
Yes. Yes.
So it's beautiful. Let's get to this little part here. And you get a sense, all different kinds of people moving in all different kinds of ways, all different kinds of ways.
Across the stars, shouting that the world is enough. Yesterday, I woke up and remembered who I was the day I was born. And I told everyone to look at us. Yes, we do exist. I told myself to run free. Desperation is not going to make me rest. To paint the world, the spirit moves you and the night tells you that you have next. Tattoo your soul with an oversized peace sign.
So I won't show the whole thing, but I will share. This is really worth watching, and we're going to link to the whole thing in our notes for this episode. Let's see if I can stop through here and come back to you, if I can find you.
We're here.
Here we are.
Yes.
Hi.
We're back.
Hi. So the things I wanted to show about that, and you guys talk too, how did you come about the format of the circle class, which I know you can't necessarily do in our current environment, but is such a neat, it is such a neat format. Describe how it works for people who've never been in a class about why the circle and how you use it to bring people together.
Well, that's a great question. So one of the things we didn't mention did we mention that we went to West Africa and this is the slave castle?
No, but I'd love to please describe that experience. You mentioned that only back when we were at the IIN Live, you told that story, and I would love to have you tell it here if you'd be willing.
Sure. So after 3 of our parents had passed away, we decided to go throughout West Africa to Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, Togo, and Benin in 2007 and learn a little bit more about the history of the slave trade. And so we went to Ghana, and there were they call them castles.
They call them forts or castles. Elmina Castle in Ghana, yeah. But they're really forts and dungeons, mainly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we learned about the dehumanization process of the indigenous people of the land and how they were, conquered and divided, and how their practices were taken away from them. And there's a whole process to it. And when we were there and learning about the story of our ancestors, although we knew it, there was nothing like being there physically back near the dungeons, where you realize at that point you're answering the prayers of your ancestors. Because if anyone's stolen from their land, involuntarily, taken, then they're going to pray to go back home, right? They're going to be yearn to go back. And so that generational trauma helped us to go on a 2-year healing journey after that, of learning more and doing that deep ancestral healing of our ancestral trauma. We went to Haiti, went to Jamaica. We just did a lot of work personally when we got home, together and individually, and really connected back to our ancestors and connected back to some of the practices that had been taken away. And so when you talk about the circle, in many indigenous cultures, it's not natural to be in a grid system. So I know a lot of classes are taught in a grid system because that's like conquering and dividing, separating people. When we're even in our homes, we don't see our neighbors, so there might be a disconnect, a distrust. Like you really have to go out of your way to meet your neighbors. We have a great relationship with many of our neighbors, but in the indigenous cultures, there's villages are set up in a circle. The circle cultivates that connection of I see who you are. And it connects like that inclusion, that feeling of inclusion, that feeling of like, it takes a village to raise a child. Like if I have a child, I know my child is safe with auntie so-and-so or the people in the village. So that's why when we went through that practice and that healing journey, it didn't feel natural to have people in a grid system, because then if we're saying inclusion, that doesn't really necessarily work for us, like for Afroflow yoga. So when we're in the circle, people sit side by side, even though they're different colors, shapes, sizes. By the time they go around the circle and maybe introduce themselves, they might find a similarity with someone who they never imagined they would. And the guards, all of the layers of protection release when they know they're in a safe environment.
I love that. I love that because there's something, that kind of, there's a teacher, and then like you said, the grid system, there's like all of the people that are trying to look just like the teacher. Whereas in a circle, you're getting the examples of all different kinds of bodies moving around you in different ways and realizing that nobody can be just like or look like anybody else. And we don't need to, It's also just sort of sweet, there's very few opportunities other than maybe church, where people get a chance to be in a kind of shared movement experience like that, or a shared musical experience like that. And there's much a spiritual quality to those experiences, I think. At least that's been my experience from watching them and from being in the virtual classes. Have you found that people come as much for that as for the movement?
Absolutely. And a lot of times, people will mention the feeling of community, and after class, a lot of times we'll go out to dinner and with folks. The bringing people together is Afroflow yoga's main and connecting with people and having no judgment, particularly people's dance style or yoga styles. People can be corrected as we go along. But in dance, you bring what you have and you move in however you want to replicate the movement. There's no judgment. So that's really brings everybody together. The first thing is to get rid of the judgment. And sitting in the circle, everybody's kind of has there's no back, there's no front. Yeah.
It's interesting.
So nobody can hide in the back because
that would be me. But there is a kind of neat. It just is striking me as you're describing the experience of, all of us having this cultural trauma to heal, and getting together in some cases to be together is the best way to do that. At the same time, I think about, the African diaspora is all of us, really. I mean, that's the truth, is when it comes right down to it, we all came at different times and different places, and we've had different versions of, cultural trauma as a result of that. Resma Menachem, who was on our podcast, continues to be one of our favorite episodes, did an incredible job of explaining how cultural trauma lands on all of us and how we all suffer. That anti-racism is not a gift to someone else; it's really like a gift to ourselves. And in class, like in classes like the ones that you have, I think too, there's an interesting rediscovery of how rhythms and circles are in all of our bodies, and we've become less acquainted with those rhythms and cycles and flows as a result of having been enculturated by a mass industrial culture, and being told to be in straight lines and to sit quietly and to, you know, wear clothes that constrain us. And I think when we witness and feel the power of those rhythms, and, you know, I think the way that you model movement, both of you, it's so beautiful, but it reacquaints us with something that I think is in our DNA. Like, we all carry some part of this, the wisdom of that rhythm that says this feels good, this works well. Our bodies, I think, need that as much as they need good, healthy food. They need human movement, and you really seem to have. You're doing a beautiful job of bringing that to people that might otherwise never find it. So let's talk a little bit about how you guys are formulating your go forward plan with Afroflow Yoga, if there is a plan or if it's just flowing out. I'm really interested, as it seems to me your audiences are growing and the appetite for this is growing. How are you making this available how do you see it coming out of the pandemic, for example? I know you have a workshop retreat happening in Costa Rica in January. That's an in-person experience. Talk a little bit about what that is like. And, if you've done this before, what experiences, I know you have done it before, what experiences you see transformationally as people get together and do this over the course of a period of days?
I was going to mention, we did have a class just 2 weeks in a live in-person class. So that was our first time back. And it was beautiful. We had a limited amount of people and we had our circle. And so it was beautiful to re-engage, with people live.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And so coming together in the retreat and what's coming up in the future for Afroflow Yoga, I definitely think one of the silver linings of COVID has been to have this whole new way of bringing Afroflow Yoga to people virtually, because we were traveling the world for the last decade, and the dilemma was, after we'd leave people, whether we were in Bali or Jamaica or wherever we were, they were like, how can we continue our practice? So that has been something that has given another dimension to Afroflow Yoga. The retreats we do every year. So we've been teaching in Costa Rica since 2014. Gosh, I can't believe it's been that long. But it's always such a gift to come into circle with people in a week long, or sometimes 2 weeks if we have that luxury. But even a few days makes a huge difference, because we can really, within the container of Afroflow Yoga, we can go deeper with people into subjects such as, ancestors or solidify the practice. Sometimes we do it around the full moons. We'll do ritual. We bring in ritual because, again, like you said, Pilar, this unlocks things that's natural to all of us. The movement, the music. It's not exclusive to just people, just certain people. It's for all humanity. Like the heartbeat and the drum is all interconnected. So ritual is something that also through colonization has been kind of stopped and blocked. And it is very natural for humans to come into some kind of ritual. I mean, we still do rituals. Like if you think about brushing your teeth every day is somewhat of a ritual. So we do go in deeper into certain topics, which is lovely. And then moving forward, we also have the teacher training program, and we have workshops. We've actually been on Zoom since 2016. We have different modules. So we have a module 1 that goes deep into the history of the African diaspora, the history of the music. We go into self-practice and spiritual development and community and healing. So we continue to do this, and we have amazing teachers who are out there as well. And so we're really excited about 2022 and in this format, we've created some new things as well, which we're really excited about. So it's all an opportunity for growth.
Oh, that sounds delicious. Oh my goodness. Yay. So, I know we just have a few more minutes and there's so many things I want to talk to you guys about. Rather than sharing my screen to encourage people to go check out these classes that you can take directly from Leslie and Jeff on your own at afroflowyoga.com and at their Afroflow Yoga YouTube channel. If people want to sign up for your classes or sign up for a package of your classes, I assume that they can just do that through your website, Leslie and Jeff?
Yes. We have a virtual studio. So on our website, there'll be a link to the virtual studio, and it's called NamaStream. And then in the virtual studio, there's all these different ways that you can join the classes.
And it's the classes, you guys do them like in your home studio with Jeff in back there playing all like, I don't know, 12 different instruments at once, pretty much. I can tell. And I will say for folks, if you think you have a yoga class that you don't need another one, or you think you have a dance class and you don't need another one, I want to suggest that you might be sorely mistaken, because I have taken every kind of class you can think of, from spinning classes to jazzercise. This is nothing like that. And the closest that I can say that it comes is the best yoga class combined with the best dance class, combined with the best general exercise, combined with the best meditation class, combined with a live concert with a highly talented percussionist doing his very best. You guys are amazing. Anything else that we should think about sharing with folks who want to learn more? And by the way, a couple of really lovely comments came through from people who are like, this is sounding lovely. This circle class sounds amazing. So I know our listeners are going to want to learn more. But what else should we be telling them that I haven't told them so far?
Oh, I was just going to say that we also, well, first of all, thank you, listeners. We send you so much love, and we can't see the comments, but please stay in touch. We'd love to stay in touch with you. And we do also a lot of private workshops. So, for example, this morning we did a private workshop for a national organization for mental health workers. We do a lot of times corporations will bring us in to do Afroflow yoga for stress management, for team building. We work with schools, universities, public schools. We do private workshops with people. So that's actually more of the bulk of our work is in some of these private settings that people bring us in for that. And
even family reunions and parties.
Wow.
Yeah, we've done all kind of birthday parties. Live. It's been great.
Gosh.
Put a whole nother spin on our business.
Yeah.
I love
And
that.
also it's multi-generational. We love working with families. Like the kids come in and we have elders.
And the pets.
Yeah, we have like just, so it's like we love, and that's the other thing, we just love of the intergenerational connection, because oftentimes, like in the Western world, we just put our elders somewhere away, and we love to include the elders, or the kids are separate. So it's a healing for everyone now.
Oh my gosh. Well, the idea of having you do like corporate events, that makes so much sense. And it makes me think too, I'm teaching at Rancho La Puerta this next week, where you have teachers come in for about a week at a time and do a series for a kind of captive audience of 150 or so people that are there full on for the week. And it's amazing how much community gets built around that. If you haven't already taught there, I'm going to recommend that they invite you to come do a week retreat there as well. Well, I hope people will check out the Costa Rica retreat. That sounds absolutely extraordinary. And also the daily available classes, the live classes, the recorded classes. Again, you can find all of that stuff at afroflowyoga.com. And you can see examples of Leslie and Jeff's work on their YouTube channel, including some really lovely media features, and the clips that I showed you part of are there in full as well. I just want to thank you both for taking time. It's been a long time in the making, this episode, and I'm just really honored to have you both and be able to share your work. I hope I get to see you again in person before too long as well.
Thank you so much, Pilar.
Hey,
Yes.
I forgot. There's one thing we always do at the end of every Living Experiment podcast. We recommend an experiment. So my experiment is an easy one, which is take yourself through one of Leslie and Jeff's online Afroflow yoga classes, or just pull yourself into watching one and see what happens. Notice what happens, how you feel in your body. Follow just a few of the cues. You know, when Leslie says, drop your shoulders and take a deep breath in, just feel how that feels and notice how long it's been since you let your body do something that just felt good. Leslie and Jeff, you guys can have your own experiments or share one, but I would love for you to offer an experiment or two to our listeners as well.
After you.
Well, I would say one of the things that I didn't mention is that last week we were up in Northern Canada doing a retreat for Indigenous women. And we do work with the Indigenous communities for the last 6 years, going back and forth to Canada. And I would say an experiment would be to maybe learn, if you haven't, just maybe learn either maybe the history, or if you, even for your own self, like look into maybe your lineage or ancestry, because oftentimes it's like we don't realize what's in our lineage until we find out, and we might not even know how to do that. So maybe, give that some thought to the roots and the interconnection of all of us. I don't know if that's kind of a big ask, isn't it?
No, no, I don't think it's a perfect ask, because again, back to the idea that we're kind of all come from one root. It's nice to be reminded of that, and also everything that's happened in between, for better and for worse. And I'm getting an echo now again. Must be time for me to go. But, that's an interesting topic for a Living Experiment podcast, how to go back and find out more on your roots. I'll post that recommendation with a few suggested links so people can know where to start. And if you have recommendations, feel free to send them on, Leslie. And in the meantime, thank you both for taking the time. Oh, Jeff, do you have one?
Yes. I would love for people to realize all the names, like Massachusetts. These are indigenous in names. There are so many names. When we were up in Canada, all the names, I was like, what is that? There was a place that we were, was called Katana, which is really the original name for Canada, but they changed the C and the D, the T to a D, and it became Canada. So a lot of these different names, and know the ground that you're on, and maybe what tribes were in that area. It's always good to go back, especially this country, to see like the Algonquin, different groups that go all the way up into Canada at one time. Yeah, so that's amazing history.
That's a really great experiment. I remember when I started to look up the land that we're on here. It's an Indian and Native American name, Menominee, which is Menomin. It's like wild rice, and a lot of that used to grow around here. And it was trickier than you might expect to find out. There's so many different First Nation tribes that moved through areas because of nomadic practices, but the Chippewa and Ojibwe people were here. And we're still, figuring out, I think, a lot of the times, like, with the history of the land that we stand on, all of which was basically the subject of land theft, which is also something that's difficult to make, sense of or peace with. But I think doing legitimate research on where we all came from and what has happened that brought us where we are, and what opportunities we have, I think, to find healing and reparations and recollecting ourselves in a way that feels sustainable for the long haul for all would be a really great practice. And I think that's actually a great way to kind of wrap up maybe what makes Afroflow yoga so special to me, is that it doesn't separate out that kind of thinking and feeling from the body-mind enjoyment of moving and listening to great music, and to take heavy things and have them become beautiful, and transmuting I think things that need to be healed into healing. So you guys, it's like, that's some sacred work you're doing. And I really appreciate you giving us an opportunity to tell more people about it. I hope more people will go and find out. You're both extraordinary human beings, and I'm glad to be on the planet with you both.
Thank you. And you're extraordinary as well.
Thank you very much. I'm a living experiment. That's what I am.
As we all are. And thanks to your audience as well.
Yeah, we're all living experiments. Keep experimenting, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Leslie and Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you.